Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. And this video is basically about Diva and how to use it, while the knowledge that you acquire from this video can be transferred across to different synthesizers. Um, I will cover that just as I'm going along. I'll explain, what's this doing here, which kind of corresponds with this, and then your envelopes, again, which corresponds with these. And then you have your effects over here, which again corresponds to here. So delay, reverb, turn that on. And then your tuning, again up here, see, and LFOs, let's see over here as well. And yeah, so that's basically it. And I'm going to just give you a couple of examples here from Diva. Now this is a preset from my pack, and I haven't finished the pack yet. It should be finished soon, kind of halfway there. But this sound was created, and I transposed it to different synthesizers. So we'll start with Diva and play a wee bit, and you'll notice just how I've used velocity. I've mapped the velocity here as well. So you'll see the harder I press a note, the more it opens the filter. Nothing special in this MIDI here, just. And I've just copy and pasted the same MIDI down here, the serum. And this one, probably less impressive, because it's a stock plugin, which is nothing wrong. If I spent more time, I could get it sounding like that, but I was sort of just trying to throw it together to show you. But so there you go, that's 3 different examples. So now I'm going to start talking about the different parameters within it. So the first thing I want to look at in Diva is the waveforms. So this is oscillator 1, 2, and 3. Every synthesizer has oscillators, or they're also known as VCOs, and I think that's voltage controlled oscillator. That's what VCO stands for. But besides that, the first thing you kind of want to do is you want to make a decision on what kind of sound you want. Within Diva, there are various different oscillators modeled after different synthesizers. So you just click down here and you kind of choose which one you want to use. I think this one here would have been the Moog. It was modeled after, and good for bass sounds and plucks and things like that, especially for melodic house. And that's why I've been using it quite a lot recently. I've sort of been focusing organic house, on melodic house, and on Afro house, and this is a really good synth for that. So what you'll notice here, automatically, the first thing is an initialized patch. Just right click up here and initialize that. Just open that filter up. They already sound different. Even on the same octave, they sound different. So what you want to do is make a decision. Do you want a sharp sound, or do you want a sine wave? Just a nice soft sound. And then you have your pulse waves. So here you would have, just, you'll see that it's kind of like a square that goes up and down, and then one side of it will be smaller. That just kind of represents, as you can see, the waveform getting narrower. That's pulse width modulation, or PWM, you'll usually see it. And within this one we have the sub oscillator and a noise oscillator. As you can see, this sound that I created involved some noise. But yeah, that's that. So for oscillators, just kind of choosing, do you want an aggressive sound, as a saw say, Alright, got noise off. You want an aggressive sound? Do you want a soft sound, which would be sine wave? You want a digital sound? So digital sharp, digital narrow, and this kind of feeds in to which this is all the way on number 1, and this is VCO2. Right, that's the same sound. Or do you want to blend? So that's basically that for waves, waveforms. And the next thing we'll talk about is the filters. The filters are basically used for subtractive synthesis. Now, I'm not really going to go in too much into sound design. I'm going to do a completely different video on that. That's going to cover the fundamentals using any synth, but I'm really focusing on Diva here. And just the use of these two areas here. So this one will be all your high pass filtering, which basically cuts out all the lower frequencies. So we'll start there and we'll open up this spectrum analyzer. It's called Span, which is free. I will put a link in the description for that, and you can go and download that. So you can see there, high pass, that's all the high frequencies pass through the filter, which is up here. And this one, this will boost the fundamental frequency, which is this one. It's just when you see it, it's easy when you demonstrate it. And feedback basically just feeds the sound back into itself. As you can see, it kind of enhances the mid section. Great for like aggressive bass lines and things like that. And the bite is just basically a resonant peak. So this will enhance it. See here. And then this kind of sweeps it. Right, this enhances it, the peak, and that sweeps it. So if you move over now to the low pass frequencies, or the low pass filters, sorry, you've got a few different ones, again modeled after different synthesizers. So they all do similar things, but they sound different and their slopes are different. So like you've got your 12 dB slope here. I think in this one you have 12 and 24. So demonstrating that would be working. As you can see, when I switch it on to 24 dB, it takes a lot more out. So that's why that wasn't working. And this just corresponds to this. So I'll just switch these over. I'll go into envelopes next. But briefly, what this does is, so put my filter all the way down, turn that off. Everything's filtered down. You can hear a bit of the fundamental. I turn this up. So what's happening there is when I press it, it's just the decay. If I put it up full, it takes longer for it to close, which I'll cover in my fundamental sound design video. But basically, I'm just stating exactly what it does here, what it modulates. LFO2, again, we can change that. I'm not going to get into LFOs in this part, but you're modulating the filter, so it's opening and closing using a triangle wave. We'll use a sine wave at a quarter beat. So basically what's happening there is this, basically. Oh. basically what's happening there. Emphasis is your resonance. You can see there this frequency. And keyboard tracking, so the further up the keyboard you play, the more the filter opens. And FM synthesis will just add some, it'll add some aggressiveness to your sound. You hear it just gets brighter as you open it. And that's it for the filters. So the next part I want to look at is the envelopes. Again, we'll have three different models here. We've got these ADS, which is attack, decay, and sustain. You do have a release button here on both of them. So initially this will be the amplitude. I think on most synths, if you look at Serum, envelope 1 will always be the amplitude unless you kind of drag that somewhere and let it go. That'll modulate that instead, as you can see. So just remove that and move back here because we're focusing on Diva. And the analog one, again, it gives you the release option so you can set your release. And the final one is the digital one, which gives you this quantize option as well. So if we just go back to the ADS, and we'll kind of go over that. So simple saw wave, just so again, sharp attack. We'll make a pluck out of this. I want to demonstrate the release function within this one. So what I find with that is if we turn that on, same here, turn that on. So the sustain's completely down. Here I'm just tapping that really quickly. And it's got quite a long tail on it, so it's almost like it's a set release time. It rings out quite a bit. There you go. So that's the function. I like that because it's good for plucks, and I'm pretty sure that I've used it on one of these plucks. Yeah. And that, again, if you take the delay and the reverb off, I just like that tail that it gives. It's just a really nice sound. So that's, yeah, it's like a very, very long release. So moving on to the analog, I'll just initialize that. One of my favorite things about this envelope is the release function. So again, I'm just going to do another pluck. Oh, turn it down, turn it up. So take the sustain off. One of my favorite things about this is it seems to be that if you press it, if you basically just kind of like do that, so if you tap it, and basically the best way to demonstrate this is just by drawing it in. So I'll just use F again. Any note. So the softer note or the shorter note seems to give a longer decay. So when you're kind of writing MIDI, sort of in, we'll use any scale at all. So it just gives that bit of, we'll change the velocity. So it lets it ring out rather than you having to automate. I find this very useful. So you would think a shorter note wouldn't ring out as quick or as long, but it does, and that's one of my favorite features about the analog envelope. And then we just switch over to the digital one. And the same feature is available on that. And then just put your these delay and reverb on, and you've got yourself a track. So there you go, and that's basically the envelopes. Over here we just have the velocity tracking. So as you can see, I've drawn these in, but they won't take effect if I do this. And again, the keyboard tracking. The best way to kind of demonstrate that is so the filter is opening the further up that scale that I go. And that's pretty much it for the envelopes. Yeah, that would cover everything there. So LFOs are, in this one, LFO1 is mapped to this vibrato, and LFO2 is your modulation. So you can kind of set that over here. And I'll demonstrate that now in a moment. I'm not really going to go into tuning in this part, but I have to use vibrato to kind of explain this. So basically, if we turn this, so the phase is where how much or where the waveform will start within the, you just second. There we go. So say that was to start at the beginning of the sine wave or in the middle of it. So that's kind of what that does, and the delay will delay how long it takes for the LFO to kick in. So we do a faster one, you can hear it better. So it starts straight away. Put a bit more release on that. It takes a few seconds to kind of start there. And then the rate is just the rate at which the and this is the, it's basically a dry wet knob for that. And this is the shape that you'll want it to kind of go in. So say this is gonna, that one was a sine, so saw down. So it kind of starts at the top, full amplitude, and drops down, drops down, drops down. Then the opposite will be going up. And this would be a square and low and high. So it kind of just where it starts in the waveform or in the wave cycle, yeah. And random. So it's the waveform itself is random. And rather than cutting straight from one to the next, it kind of glides up and down to it. And this is how it starts. So sync, basically, it won't just restart whenever a note's pressed, and gate, that would happen. So it kind of starts in the same position each time. And that's what happens when it's not starting at the beginning. So it might be restarting in the middle of while you're holding the note. And then the sync is basically the speed of the LFO. That's 30-second notes, 16th notes, 8th notes. And that's really it for the first one. That's vibrato, so you can turn that on and off here. So vibrato is just modulating the pitch, basically. And polarity is, rather than going, so if it was 0 and minus 50 and 50, the wave cycle would be going back and forward, with minus 50 being the lowest and 50 plus being the highest. But when you change to unipolar, it won't be going down below minus or down below 0. So it'll only be going above. So it'll be going all the way up to 50 and back down to 0, and all the way up to 50 and back down to 0, without going below 0. So that when you change that from, you're basically changing this from bipolar to unipolar. And these are your different, so if you map that to envelope 2, which is this one, and change that to LFO1. So that just kind of correlates with this and this. Well, I suppose when you have it set to LFO1, sorry. So, and you have to have this set to envelope 2. That would mean this knob here, this envelope would be modulating this. Hold on. So just like that would be opening the filter up here and closing down, because you're modulating the rate of envelope 2. So basically watch the mouse and the direction it's going in. So that's what's happening. The rate of the LFO is extremely fast at the beginning, and then slows down to the point where it's at the 16th notes. So that's what that's doing, and that's going to be doing that on LFO2 as well, but obviously it's doing it with the pitch over here. So we'll use LFO2 to demonstrate this one. Change that to quarter notes. And we'll use it, yeah. Sorry, and we will. So that's modulated by that. The further up I put that decay, the longer that takes to come down, and you can use that with attack as well. That's the longer it's taken to opening up, and that's basically that for these. And the mod wheel as well, that you can modulate that to the mod wheel. There's all different parameters you can use here, but this is basically the same as this one, with the difference being this one modulates the vibrato, which is the pitch, and this one modulates whatever you set it to. So basically that's it for the modulation section, which is just these two. I want to just talk about the tuning and the voicing here, which is basically these ones. And so again, we've talked about the vibrato and what that does. So just again, we'll just stick to using F. Turn that up a wee bit. So vibrato, we know what that does, turning that on. But you need to actually have this activated. Slow that down a bit. So just turn that off. We're not going to use that. The glide is when you go, so I need to open the piano roll to demonstrate this. So best way to demonstrate that. It just kind of leaps from one note to the other. And if you turn the glide on, you can see how it kind of glides up using pitch. But you'll also see when it restarts from the last note, which was a higher note, up here, it has to bend back down again to this one from the end of this. So you hear how it kind of drops down, like boom. And then when I play it, it drops back down. But if I play it from this one, it doesn't have to do that. So this, to change that, how much that goes up, we would go up. This is the range, or the glide, sorry, glide. Because there's two voices now, this controls the opposite voice. So they kind of like go in different speeds up to the next note because there's two voices now rather than one. And they kind of like modulate against each other. So just turn that off. And the fine tuning will basically be, put that back down to 2. The fine tuning basically goes one semitone at a time, as you'll see up here. When I move it, that's moving that voice down. And then this one goes in. That's down an octave, -12, up an octave. It's basically the same as this, but it's like a global parameter for all of the rather than this one's going to be at 8, this one's going to be at 4. Or say 16. But this will put, if you go up to 12, up 1 octave, this has now went up to here, and this has now went up to here. As you'll see. So when I do this, same thing, but this controls, it's more time consuming to go each one. And go back down there. And so that's it for the tuning. This is just your type of tuning. It's basically like the circuit board within the it's like the circuit board within the actual synth, like a hardware synth. This changes the circuitry, so it sounds different. So that'll affect the tuning of the actual synth as well. So I just normally kind of keep it as it is. And down here we have, so it's in mono, which means that you only can play one note at a time. I'm playing 2 notes, but it's only playing one of those notes. Poly, or so that's allowing me to play all 3 notes. It's actually would allow me to play up to 8. So when I change that to 2 voices, that'll only play. When I play the third one, one of the other ones will be cancelled out. So it'll probably be the lowest note, because that's what this is set for. So if we change that to, basically the best way to demonstrate that is if we go to mono, switch that to the lowest note. The lowest note has priority, so if I hit the lowest note and then hit it one higher up the scale, it won't do nothing. But if I start with a high note and try to hit a lower note, no problem. And then that's vice versa the other way around. Just as you can see over here. And this is just for online rendering, which not really is going to affect your sound design unless you're getting very particular. So voices, I mean, the more you have, I take that and put that in poly. And this is just the different ways in which when you're using 1 or 2 notes and how it'll react. So 1 note, 2nd note, 3rd note, and then try to put another one in again. But that's because of this. And stack is just kind of like adding more voices and widening them out, which can be, when you kind of get deeper into it, into here, that kind of correlates with this and these things. And that's really it for the tuning and the voices. So mainly I kind of stick to poly or mono. And if I'm doing mono, back down to 1. It's good for bass. If you just use a sub bass. You don't want your notes overlapping, so you would use mono. Chords, obviously you would use poly, and leads and things like that too. So yeah, that's it for the tuning and the voices. The ARP is, I'm just going to use one of my MIDI clips that I've created from a preset pack. And again, I haven't finished the pack. I'll have a link to it when it is completed. I'm sure you'll hear about it. But here we're talking about this section, the ARP section. So if we just turn that off for now and see what happens when we play this. It's just a chord progression and it plays the beginning of it. So if we turn the ARP section on, so what we have here is basically just show you now exactly what's happening. See if we can take the MIDI from this into here. That's how it goes. Oh no, that'll not work because I need to actually have MIDI on the actual just before this. So I need to have the arpeggiator in here. but because it's used within the plugin, that'll not actually take that. So we'll put it on anyway. So that just adds like a delay in timing to give groove to your track. If I put this on, matter of fact, I'll just put a kick loop in there. Alright, we can't always come pre-prepared for these things. You should just kind of do it on the fly. So what you're hearing there is the timing from the swing. Take it off. So this is just adding more notes. This is adding more swing groove. And we'll just go back down to 16 and leave it at that. That sounds nice. And here we have the octaves, which basically will show how far it goes up. So initially. And this restarts every 6 beats. So or every 6, it must be like the 6th note in the scale. So just mess around with them until you kind of get something that you're happy with. And then, so if I change this to 14, change that to 3. And that's really it for the ARP. The amp and pan area is quite simple, really. So this is just the volume. As I said before with the envelopes, envelope 1 is usually mapped to the amplitude, which you can see here. Now you can free that up and you can modulate envelope 1 with something else. But in this case, we'll just leave that as is. And the pan, if you've got headphones on, you'll notice that's all the way to the left, all the way to the right. And volume modulation. So just think of this as if you put random. Now that that's up full, that's 100% that it's going to randomly act at the level at which each time I press the key. That's not velocity mapping, that's random. So it doesn't matter how hard I press it, it's going to just play a volume that it kind of decides to randomly. And if we just take that off now, and the pan modulation, as you'll see, if it's connected to LFO2, so if you change that to 1/8, the depth mod is all the way up. You can see that that just kind of modulates back and forward from left to right. That's not at all. But that's kind of like inverted. That's one way and that's the other way. But it's modulating left to right, so it's basically like an offset. This would probably be like offset 180 degrees the other way in terms of the waveform. And that's really it for the amp and the pan. The final piece of the puzzle, because we're only really talking about the front panels here. We're not going to go into the trimmers or anything. Kind of just sticking to the basics of it. So I'm just going to quickly create a pluck as usual. There we go. So each effect that we have here, we have chorus, phaser, plate, delay, and rotary. So the one that kind of confused me at the beginning is this rotary one, which is basically like tube distortion. I think it's based off like a Leslie cabinet or something like that. And kind of adds width to the sound. So basically the mix is how much of that. And that's like the speed at which it's modulating. There's your distortion. And that's kind of widening your sound out. All the way up will be wider. And so kind of feed in how much of that you want. That sounds nice. And then again, chorus is widening your sound out. And that's just your styles of chorus. That's probably going to be the widest one. So you can hear the difference in all three of those. And we'll just put that on and we'll use some delay. Turn it on would be a great idea. So you'll hear that'll ping pong from left to right. It'll just kind of repeat the signal that's the initial press. That's just that one note. And the dry is the amount of the original signal. I'm pressing it, but it's not actually playing the original note that I'm pressing. And this is the volume for the repetitions in the center, and this is the ones at the side. And this is the high pass. That takes all the lows out, which is good if you just want to keep the effects within the plugin. That takes the higher frequencies out. The feedback is how long or how many delays it will play. I think the wow kind of just changes it's like a modulation effect almost. And this is the timing of each of the delays. And then we can change this to plate reverb. And turn that off. That's the original signal. That's the reverb signal. The size of the room. How long the reverb lasts. And the fusion, or the dampness, sorry. That kind of just takes, it's almost like it makes the higher frequencies more potent the further down you put it. Kind of like to have it near the top. The lower the diffusion, it'll sound more like a delay. So kind of like softens the sounds that bounce off the wall, basically. And pre-delay is just how long between. So it's instant there. Then there's a few milliseconds between it. And phaser, it's just kind of like putting notches in the filter. So and it's just kind of sweeping back and forth through that. And then that kind of widens it out. So and that's really it for the effects, I think, for us. Yeah, that's it for all of the effects. So kind of just mess around with them. Don't overdo it. Don't like do something like this. And then put your plate. Don't overdo it like that when you're creating, kind of like bits and pieces of everything, not too much, but that kind of covers everything within the plugin. So it's kind of really up to you to go out and experiment with different ways of creating sounds. And in another video, then I'll explain. So each different type of preset that I have here, not just my presets, but like in general, whenever I'm creating them and what I'm thinking about and how to do it. So if I'm going to create a sub sound, what way am I going to do that? And if I'm going to create a pluck sound, which I've done it a few times in this video, what way I would go about doing that. Pads, LFOs, the same thing, just each process and how to do it. Not really going to go into like crazy sound design. It's just basically the fundamentals. So I'll cover 2 videos. I'll do it with one with Diva, and then I'll have a fundamental sound design video. I will put the links into the, like they'll come up in the video here the next time. But just keep an eye on the channel and you'll see those in the next coming weeks. So hopefully you've learned something about Diva, and just as I said, experiment as much as you can with it. And yeah, keep an eye out for the next couple of videos. And yeah, that's it for now. And thanks for watching. And please, so that I can just continue to make these videos, like and subscribe, please. And we'll have many more and different plugins and lots of different. It's basically just your first place to come and look where you need help with sound design and music production. It's all going to be here. And the more I get to do this and the more you subscribe, the more opportunity it gives me to do that. So yeah, hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.